Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
I'm Jim Czek. You're watching Now Media. With me, Ravi Parmar, the BC Minister of Forests. And it's been a while since we interviewed last time. It's got to be over a year, I think. This is run up before the election, I think.
Yeah, you bet, Jim. Always a pleasure to be on your show. It seems like forever ago. Different gig back then, but really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about forestry.
And forestry, obviously, in a little bit of turmoil here. I just interviewed Rob Douglas, the mayor of North Cowichan there, and the Domtar closure. I think that's been in the news. I mean, those are big things for that community. You know, that we almost had a similar headline, that community reeling, obviously 350 good paying jobs, right? And obviously all the spin-off that comes from, right? And, you know, how do you replace those good paying jobs? And I did see you guys put out a press release there with a little bit of help coming in the Chemainus area there, because he said that one mill was shut down as well on a bit of a hiatus that was supplying chips to Domtar there. But Western Forest Products, there was some money given to them, $7.5 million just recently for their dry kilns operations. And then some more money for some other, there's I think $91 million in support for 75 forest products manufacturers since 2023, I think, according to your guys' press release there. So I imagine you're trying to do the best you can, and obviously facing, you know, the tariffs exaggerated the problems that are here in British Columbia that have been around for a while. I did have the chance to interview Bruce Ralston, your former Minister of Forests there. And, you know, some of these problems have been ongoing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, I've inherited a ministry and a sector that has faced challenges not for the last 1, 2, 5, 10 years, but has been a boom and bust industry for decades. And what we know in those circumstances, when things are well, everyone's doing well. When things are tough, the people that pay the price the most are workers. And you see that with the workers in Crofton and 100 Mile and different parts of the province. We've got thousands of workers just in British Columbia alone, but even more across Canada that are being impacted by a number of reasons. Jim, duties and tariffs that are placing, you know, a chokehold on our ability to be able to provide to Americans our strong quality wood products that have been used for the last 50 plus years, 100 years to build homes in every state in the United States. But also at the same time, the price of lumber is really low right now, under $400 a board feet. And at the same time, demand has completely collapsed because of what Donald Trump has done to the economy in the United States. The National Home Building Association puts out releases every other week about how difficult of a situation it is. And so I often talk about duties and tariffs and things that we can control and what we can't control. I'm certainly hopeful that the Prime Minister will be able to make his case to the president in the weeks ahead around CUSMA, and in particular some sectoral relief for the auto sector, steel, aluminum, as well as tariffs. We have shown good progress in British Columbia in reminding the federal government of why it is so important that they fight for forestry workers. Forestry workers, there's more forestry workers than any other of those sectors that I named. For us in British Columbia, forestry is our auto sector. Forestry is our steel sector. And I got to be honest with you, Jim, from just about a year ago now that I've become the Minister of Forests, it has taken a lot of time and effort to convince the federal government to really show up and make the investment. It's because of the work that Premier Eby and myself have done, going to Ottawa, engaging directly with the Prime Minister as well as senior officials in his government, that has led to literally billions of dollars being invested in Canada's forest sector that hasn't been invested. Trudeau completely dropped the ball on forestry and softwood lumber for the entire period that he was in office. I'm particularly impressed with Prime Minister Carney, and in particular with his minister responsible for natural resources, Tim Hodson. He has certainly stepped up. I have certainly shared with him my frustrations with his predecessors, and he is working hard to address those. And he's not moving as quickly as I, of course, would like him to, but without a doubt, we have seen some progress. And, you know, not just those pieces, there's a number of other challenges, as you're aware, I'm sure, from interviews you've done with Bruce and with Rob and others on forestry. Fiber supply is a big issue. Wildfires continue to be a big issue. Yeah, absolutely. Huge issues that I'd love to talk to you about.
And I've done tons of interviews, and I've done with one of the VPs from AP Planers, and we've talked to many industry people. I interviewed Kofi. And one of the common threads, and I'm glad you brought that up, it's stuff that we can control because we have little control over Donald Trump and his tariffs, but access
Yeah.
to fiber is a big one. And that is a common complaint from the forest companies that say access to fiber. In almost every interview I've done, from going back to Bruce Ralston, this is a couple of years now, back to Kofi, prior, when they did a report, 10,000 jobs lost in forestry. Canfor, when it didn't go ahead with its planned project in Houston, closed Bear Lake. The common theme is fiber, and that's what Domtar cited as well. They didn't even cite the tariffs. I know that exaggerates the problem, but it's access to fiber, and that's something you guys have control over. What's the path forward on access to fiber for these companies?
Yeah, great question. I appreciate that. Access to fiber is a big priority. It's why the Premier has made forestry and my mandate that he's given to me, which is to build that strong, sustainable timber harvesting land base that can produce an appropriate level of harvest for companies to continue to operate in BC, a major project. You'll probably have heard the Premier refer to 18 major projects that are predominantly LNG, oil and gas, as well as mining projects. Forestry is Project 19, and that is the task that he's given to me. But obviously, I have to work across government to be able to make this happen with my colleagues in the Minister of Environment and Parks, Walrus, you name it. And that's a priority for me. As you touch on fiber supply, I can share with your listeners some of the work that I've been doing the last number of months. One of the first tasks that I had was I brought in a new deputy minister to the Ministry of Forest and the Forest Service. Mackenzie Lane comes from industry. That was really important for me to be able to bring industry perspective to the Forest Service. There has been a transformational change in my ministry. We've got incredible public servants that make up the Forest Service that have been doing incredible work. We've taken all of the economists that are spread out in our ministry and moved them into one division to help guide our economic work and building a strong working force to be able to help protect all of the sectors that make up forestry, the ecosystem, sawmills, pulp mills, value-added facilities. And you're absolutely right, duties and tariffs play a role, but also fiber supply is as well. One of the things that I did a number of months ago was I gave direction to my deputy minister and the entire public service, excuse me, to do a timber supply review of the entire province. I wanted to know what was holding up permits. And I think permitting is obviously a word we use a lot in natural resources. And so I think it was really important for me early on, Jim, to understand what was the delay, where was the delay. When I became the Minister of Forests, on average, about 80% of the permits were being approved within 45 days. And so that meant when a permit was submitted to the ministry, 80% of them across the province were being approved. On the coast, it was about 100%. I saw that as, okay, we're doing all right when permits get submitted. And so I said, okay, I'm going to put a little bit of pressure on my team. We're going to put the bar down to 25 days. And we saw some really good progress, and we saw some areas where we need to do some work. And then as part of that 10-year review that we did across the province, I wanted to understand what was the holdup. And what I heard from industry, from contractors was, you're right, Minister, when a permit gets submitted to the ministry, you guys are usually pretty quick to get it approved. It's all the time it takes to process the permit. And so when we did our review, we saw really two things that were driving delays in getting permits submitted. One was, in some areas of the province, First Nations consultation, and the second one was economics. And I want to touch on economics in a moment. In relation to First Nations, I have made it very clear to industry, to the contracting community, as well to First Nations, that it is my belief and it is my direction to this sector to go out and meaningfully engage and consult with First Nations, with rights holders. But at the end of the day, meaningfully engage, consult, accommodate, and if you don't get consent, it is not the end of the world. Submit your permit. And once you submit your permit, it will fall upon the Ministry of Forest, and in particular, in the case of cutting permits, district managers to perform their obligation, their legal obligation to meaningfully consult, engage, and accommodate as well. And we will get permits flowing. And we have started seeing more of those being submitted. And I would say that in many cases, in the majority of cases, First Nations are the ones that are actually the licensee holders in many of these communities. I think of where you're from, Jim, in the Okanagan, where we've got the number of nations. I think the West Bank First Nations is an example who had the opportunity to take me up and show me some of their forestry operations, in particular where they've been doing some salvaging work after some pretty disastrous wildfire seasons in West Kelowna. Tons of other examples and partnerships with Tolko and so many others to really help move more fiber. But there are parts of the province, without a doubt, where we're facing some challenges. And There's a number that I can talk to you about where we're just going to have agree to disagree, and we're going to start moving some fiber. So that's one bucket. The economics is one that really caught me off guard when I became Minister of Forest. It was shared with me, and we've done some statistics that the cost of transportation has gone up 50% since the pandemic. And so just movement of fiber has gone up, which is leading to a lot of permits. And you'll have seen this in Domtar's announcement. They didn't just say lack of access to fiber. They said lack of affordable access to fiber, the affordable being the key word. There are a number of permits across the province right now. I think of in the coast, the interior, and the north that are approved, permitted, ready to go. And no one's harvesting them. And the reason they're not is people are not making money when they go out and harvest. They're not making money because of duties and tariffs. They're not making money because of collapse in the U.S. housing demand. And they're not making money because of the price of lumber as well. But also, I'll add two more things. They're not making money because of the cost of transportation going up, as well as some tenure obligation costs as well. And so one of the things that I launched just a few weeks ago was a complete tenure obligation review. I want to ensure that there are consistencies amongst all the district offices that I'm responsible for. And so while we're doing this tenure obligation review, we're also doing an administrative review. I want to ensure that every single district office in the province that is providing forestry permits, cutting permits, you name it, road permits, is all singing from the same songbook, all using the same playbook. And as part of that means making sure that we're looking at every single piece of paper that goes into a cutting permit. We're looking at every single obligation cost and making sure that we're becoming as competitive as we can. When I was in Japan and South Korea last month, Jim, I led the largest forestry sector trade mission in British Columbia's history. Had about 70 people with me on that trade mission, from small mom and pop companies to big companies, First Nations, labor, contractors, you name it. Sorry, I talk a lot, and that means I have to cough once in a while. As part of that trade mission, I heard directly from our customers that they value British Columbia's products. They value the durability, the strength, and the sustainability that comes from British Columbia's forest sector. After all, Jim, even with the challenges we're facing, we are one of the world's largest exporters of softwood lumber in the entire world. And that's something we should be proud of. We should be proud of our forest sector here in British Columbia. And that's something I've certainly expressed in my year as Minister of Forest. But that's not good enough. We have to be price competitive as well. And so I'm working actively with industry to do an obligation review. We're meeting with all the different district offices, bringing them together. We're meeting with industry licensee holders. How can we be more competitive? How can we drop the price? It's not going to be easy, especially given the environment of what we're dealing with market and the price of lumber, but it's something that I'm really driven to move forward. And I hope that those are going to be some things that we can do to really, in the short term, stabilize operations and get more fiber flowing. Another part of that is BC Timber Sales, which I'd be more than happy to talk about as well.
So when I interviewed the Premier a while back, again, around when I interviewed you, one of the problems was permitting, for sure. Permitting was identified, and he agreed to that permitting needed to be fixed. And also access to fiber. But some of the mills, Canfor and the AP planers, and that says certainty is also a really big problem for them, right? The certainty, and we're seeing a lot of that stuff come out with these DRIPA rulings too. And there's a lot of uncertainty in British Columbia right now. And I think one of the reason, this is prior to that, even Canfor cited the reason that they're leaving the Houston operation was uncertainty in British Columbia. And Kofi's asking, will the BC NDP commit to the allowable cut of 45 million cubic meters in 2025 and maintain those levels into the future? The last question is because it would be a multi-part question. There was a committee that was struck that brought in a whole bunch of people. The biggest complaint was from industry was that not enough industry representation on this committee.
I'm not sure which committee you're necessarily referring to. There's in forestry, there's lots of committees, and so what I'll share is overall, it is my expectation that industry is at the table as part of these conversations, and so I engage with industry on a daily basis. I met with the vice president of West Fraser as an example. I'm in regular communications with Tolka, which is a major operator in the Okanagan. I had a very delightful conversation with the CEO of Canfor just a couple of days ago as well. And so as Minister of Forest, I am engaging with industry on a daily basis. I am understanding what exactly their concerns are, but I'm also going to them with an expectation as well. And that is, I need jobs. I need prosperity in community. I need investments in communities. I know that in 2021, when the price of lumber skyrocketed and everyone was making money and we weren't seeing layoffs then, a lot of these companies made a lot of money, billions of dollars in profits. And I didn't necessarily see those investments here in British Columbia. And that's fair. Those are business decisions. But when I'm going to them and saying, I want to help address your concerns, I want to help address fiber supply in a lot of these pieces, I want to help build a strong, sustainable working forest that can provide the stability, the certainty, the predictability that you need to be able to make investments. And that's the key word that I'm looking for, is investments. And I think it's important for us to recognize that even though we've faced challenges, as you've noted, with Canfor, as well as other companies that have curtailed and closed their operations, we've also seen investments. I think of Hampton Lumber, that in 2024 opened up the most modern sawmill I've ever walked into in my entire life in Fort St. James. That was a massive investment by a company that has got great relationships with First Nations and is doing really good work on the land base. I think of Tolko and Heffley Creek making a substantive investment with all of the complexity and the uncertainty that you named in Heffley Creek with a mass timber facility. Tolko is leading the way in the Okanagan and value added, and it's going to play a big role in the mass timber market. And also think of not too far from you, Jim, in particular in West Kelowna, where you've got Gorman Brothers that has its sawmill there. It's one in Revelstoke. They made, even after the announcement of Donald Trump and the duties and tariffs, they made a $120 million investment to purchase the Weyerhaeuser facility in Princeton. And so I think it's important to recognize that even though we've got some challenges, we also have companies investing in British Columbia. And many of those companies are based here and have told me they have no intentions of going, and they're going to work with me day in, day out to fight like hell for this sector and to fight like hell for the workers that make up this sector. That is my commitment. Jim, I did arguably one of the what one could be argued is the most stupid decision a politician could make. And that was just over a year ago. I sat across from the premier and I asked for this job. Not a lot of people would probably ask to be the Minister of Forest, but I did. And one could argue, and we'll leave it to the historians 20, 40, 50 years from now, whether Parmar made a dumb decision. But at the end of the day, putting that aside, it is my damn honor and privilege to work on behalf of the 50,000 direct and over 100,000 indirect forestry workers in every corner of this province. They are counting on me to get this right. And that means me bringing everyone to the table. Industry, contractors, workers, First Nations. There's a lot of conflict on the land base. And I can assure you, I see it all the time. I'm an MLA from Vancouver Island and southern Vancouver Island, where, you know, sometimes my constituents have different perspectives on forestry. Even though Langford, where I'm recording this video from right now in my community office, used to have a sawmill right in the downtown core. If you went and asked the people of Langford right now, they'd be saying, no way. But I've got a picture in my office that proves that, because forestry, there were sawmills everywhere. And we've certainly seen that curtailed and concentrate over time. But forestry is the bedrock of our economy here in British Columbia. I'm damn proud to be the Minister of Forest. I know we've got a whole host of challenges, and we're going to work very quickly and efficiently to address those challenges. And we're going to fight like hell for those workers. That's why I asked for this job. And that's why I'm working very hard across the sector to bring together all of these like-minded voices, because I think there are a lot of things that we can agree on moving forward to really transform the sector, so we can move away from boom and bust. We can move away from just being a jurisdiction that provides commodity lumber to Americans to providing the highest quality, most sustainable forest products in the entire world. And again, unlock so much potential in markets like Japan and South Korea, and also Europe, where I just opened an office in the UK.
Forestry is in the blood of many British Columbians. I started actually the day I turned 16. I started pulling boards on the green chain in Midway, BC at Pope and Talbot, and then later went on to work in Canfor. I think it's had a few names up in High Level, Alberta, one of the most productive mills in northern Alberta. And then when I interviewed AP Planner's the vice president there, he said Alberta was doing much better than British Columbia, and he cited a few reasons for that. Do you ever look over there and say, like, how can we fix some of the things that they seem to be doing better? Higher stumpage feeds here, higher electricity costs, more regulation here. And obviously they got flat land to work with, which makes it a lot easier for them to work with when they're hauling their logs and that. But they seem to do better. The mills are cheaper to run and they're easier to finance because there's more certainty on the land base there as well. So have you ever visited any of those Alberta mills? And I recommend the High Level one, because that's a very well-run operation.
Yeah, I haven't visited any mills in Alberta, but I spent a week on a trade mission with the Alberta Forest Ministers. I have the honor of serving as the chair of the Council of Forest Ministers, and so as part of that work, I've been engaging with my colleagues from coast to coast to coast. And Alberta and British Columbia have a lot in common. We also have a lot of difficulties and differences, as you can imagine, on pipelines and other things right now. But on forestry, we are working very closely together, and I invited the forest minister in Alberta, Todd Lowen, very nice guy, to participate in our trade mission to Japan and South Korea last month. And so we had some conversations about the challenges they're facing. I'm not sure if it's the exact facility you're referring to, but West Fraser just announced the closure of their OSB plant and I believe it was High Level Alberta, if I'm not mistaken. And so they certainly in Alberta are facing the same challenges as well, duties and tariffs, as well as wildfires that have certainly impacted their land base. But I'm learning from all jurisdictions. I've had conversations, as an example, with my friend Mike Harris from Ontario, who's the Minister of Natural Resources. I don't believe that sitting on my hands here in BC and just saying BC has all the solutions and all the success is the right approach. I'm engaging with everyone across this country, everyone across North America. You'll remember, Jim, that a lot of companies made investments in the U.S. South. They were
Yeah.
taking profits from here and yeah, exactly, making investments in the U.S. South. Many of those mills are curtailing and closing right now in the U.S. South. And so I think it's important for us to look at the entire world as forest sector. I think we have to look at Europe, which is competitive. It's why, again, I'm opening an office in the UK, because Europe right now is dealing with with a beetle that is going to lead to a decline in their fiber supply as well. And so forestry is changing on a daily basis. And so I'm certainly looking to other jurisdictions. I'm glad you mentioned that Alberta is flat, British Columbia is not, and so their transportation costs are certainly smaller. And then in the U.S. South, one of the reasons why their mills are closing is labor is a big challenge. I will put our labor standards in British Columbia up against any other jurisdiction in the entire world. We are proud of that here in BC. Does that mean you have to pay a little bit more to be able to help protect your workers? You bet. That's not going to change under an NDP government. But at the same time, I recognize we have to be competitive. That's why I'm doing these 10-year obligation reviews. That's why I'm working with companies to better understand how we can become the most competitive forest jurisdiction in the entire world.
Old growth comes up a lot too, and like that interview with AP Planers, they said too that there's too many forests that are designated old growth, and like there's less access to fiber, because fiber is the biggest complaint, and some of those things come from uncertainty, some of that come from the land base, and some of that comes from designating old growth, and Alberta doesn't really face a lot of that.
Yeah, so I would share from my perspective, we've done a lot of work on the old growth file. I am very proud of our sustainability record. I think there are a lot of people. Well, there are people out there. I won't say there are a lot of people, but there are people out there that would love nothing more than to shut down the forest sector in BC. I got zero time for those people. I'm proud of the work that we've done on old growth. We made a strategic decision to go out and engage with First Nations on temporary deferrals, and we're leading to success. You've seen some of the protests that are happening on Vancouver Island and the Walbrand. 85% of the Walbrand as old growth will never be harvested. It's protected. It's in provincial parks. It is in protected other types of protected areas. It's in uneconomic areas where there will never be harvested. And we have done that work with First Nations. I think of the Hawaiian First Nations. I think of a nation that I used to represent up until a year ago when I had a bigger riding, Langford Wandafuka, the Pachadat Nation, that are developing their integrated resource management plans, deciding where they want to harvest, what they want to keep, what they want to protect. And old growth falls within all those categories as well. We are doing a good job here in British Columbia in protecting old growth. I am proud of our record. I'm proud of our sustainability record. I'm proud of the work that our companies are doing, our loggers on the ground, in leaving British Columbia's forests in a better place than they were provided before. I've talked about this a number of times, Jim. We used to have 1950 style clear-cut harvesting. There is a lot of work that goes into harvesting a cut block, and there is a lot of environmental protections that go into it as well. And I think my belief, and I'm not a forester, I don't profess to be one, but after a year, I've got some insights. When we look at protected areas, provincial parks, old growth management areas, caribou habitat, we have to manage those land bases as well. We can't just put a circle around them and say they're fine. I think you just have to look at the peace country right now. As far up as Fort Nelson, where you are seeing huge swaths of land that are burning up in forest fires. And so I'm a big proponent as the Minister of Forest for British Columbia in active forest management. I've got a committee that has industry representation on it, has loggers, contractors, environmental organization leads, all sitting around the same table, having an active conversation about active forest management and what that means to be able to help protect our land base from fires. I'm the minister responsible for the BC Wildfire Service. Our wildland firefighters are kick-ass. They do incredible work every single year, but they shouldn't have to. I think there's a role that our sector can play in helping to protect communities. A lot of our areas that have been impacted are protected areas, and I think there's some work we can do in commercial thinning and selective logging, partial harvesting, that provides an opportunity for the sector, for our incredible loggers, to help out our wildland firefighters in protecting our land base. And again, active forest management is a big driver in that work.
I think one of the questions that I think a lot of people would like an answer to, because forestry, I would say, is one of the top industries, and I believe when I was a 16-year-old, it was probably the top industry in British Columbia. That and forestry and mining kind of went hand in hand. One would be up, one would be down, and they would kind of like cycle through all the time. The job losses in small communities especially are really tough for these people because they're good paying jobs, right? They're jobs that, you can buy a house, you can buy a pickup truck, and you can raise a family, and they're tough to replace. I know the tradesmen can probably find other work. And when I was talking to Rob Douglas, the mayor in Crofton, it's the people in that 50 to 65 range, a little too old to get retrained, but still not ready to retire. What's the message to these people? How are we going to make forestry viable here so they can actually get back to work? Like, can we get Domtar back running?
Well, in the case of yeah, thanks, Jim. I agree with you completely. Like, these are good paying, quality family supporting jobs that we have to protect. I made a commitment to workers that I'm going to fight like hell to protect their paychecks, and I mean every word of that. And it's very difficult given what we're seeing in Crofton and 100 Mile and other parts of not only British Columbia, but with Alberta's recent announcement and other announcements in the East Coast. And I was chatting with Minister Harris about the challenges they're facing in Ontario as well. And so what we have to do is protect those jobs. We have to stabilize operations. And you're right, we have to look at also retraining, reskilling. We have so many forestry towns, forestry cities here in British Columbia, where forestry is the bedrock of that community. And Crofton is a prime example of that. In the case of Crofton, I am going to leave no stone unturned in ensuring that that site can continue to produce good paying family supporting jobs. I've retained some skills from an individual who will be helping me in exploring opportunities to look at that pulp facility as well as other opportunities as well. I'm having conversations with folks across coastal British Columbia. In your introductory remarks, you acknowledged the investment that we had yesterday in Chemainus. In Chemainus, we invested as a province $7 million for upwards of a $30+ million investment between the government of British Columbia and Western Forest Products to build the two largest continuous kilns in North America. And the reason why that was a big deal is raw log exports. If there's a topic that people want to talk about in British Columbia, it's raw log exports. And we have to maximize our species profile. Hemlock is a very wet species. And sometimes it's just easier to just ship it as a raw log than to maximize its product here. And it's a beautiful species. We're seeing more of it in Japan as an example. We've got a great initiative with the Hawaii First Nations and timber tiles. There's so much going on with the species profile. And so very proud that we were able to open up this continuous mill. And the reason I mention it is that is going to protect jobs. That is going to protect those folks that want to work their entire lives in forestry and retire in peace. What is one of the most difficult conversations I have is with those that are in that 50 to 60 range. They want a few more years. They want to continue building up their paycheck. They want to continue supporting their family, supporting their pension. But also at the same time, we also want to look after those young workers. I went up and I met with about 200 of those Crofton workers because it was my job to look them in the eye and listen to their concerns, address their challenges, and for them to express their frustration with me with what they were seeing. That was the least I can do after they got devastating news the week prior. And I got to tell you, Jim, it was the toughest thing I've ever had to do in my political career. I haven't been involved in politics for many years. Started in the school district, became an MLA, and became the Minister of Forest a year ago. But man, was that hard. hard to stand in front of 200 workers. I got to tell you, there was a lot of tears in my eyes in the days ahead. But the most difficult part of that conversation was I met a young man named Kyle. He came up to me afterwards, said he's been working at Crofton for a few years. And I said, "Where do you live, Kyle?" And he said, "Langford." Commutes from Langford every day. And I don't think he realized that I'm his MLA, but he's my guy. He's a constituent. And in a way, I felt like I let him down. And so I have to buck up. We have to buck up together and work to protect these jobs and work to ensure that we can stabilize operations, transform this sector. Boom and bust can no longer be how we describe forestry in BC.
The sadder reality is most of those communities, you talk about northern communities, the whole community is there because of a mine or a mill. You know what I mean? They build around, like you don't choose to build a town in 100 Mile House. It's there because there was a mill there or a mine there, and this is Quesnel, Prince George, Fort St. John. All these towns, either mine, mill, or oil and gas, right? They're built around these industries. When 100 Mile House loses, an industry, that's devastating for, like, how do they sell their house? What do they do? Crofton is in a little better position because it's on, on the ocean. Maybe it'll become a retirement community and stuff, but 100 Mile House, Bear Lake, these other ones that are a lot tougher. Like, how do you make these people whole when they want to leave? They don't even have a way to, you know what I mean? They have a house, they have a mortgage, they have all these things, and then they just lost, like a good paying job that is really, really hard to replace. And I think that's the question on many of these people's minds is there a mine coming? Is there, you know what I mean? Like, where can I keep the home that I spent 20 years like paying for, and all of a sudden, like and it happens usually overnight, right? The notice comes and it says, the mill in 100 Mile House is closing permanently, and they don't know what to do, right?
Yeah, 100 Mile is a prime example. I used to work for for a former Forest Minister, Doug Donaldson. I worked for Ravi Parmar and his chief of staff. I was there on the ground when the Norbord facility closed at 100 Mile. I was there in Merritt when Tolko closed its facility. I was in Mackenzie when there was a facility closure there. And so I've only been the Minister of Forest for about a year, but I've been involved in this sector in a way on the political side, and certainly serving former ministers for a few years now. And it is absolutely devastating. It is gut-wrenching to sit across from people who've just been given the worst news of their lives. And so completely hear you on that. You're absolutely right. I think the way that we have to address the challenges we have before us, and Donald Trump, in our budget challenges here in the province, is we have to grow the economy. We have to make British Columbia the engine of Canada's new economy. And you've certainly heard the Premier talk about that in relation to natural resources projects, tech and innovation. We've got new mines. My colleague, Csek, the Minister of Mining and Critical Minerals, is doing an outstanding job in trying to reduce permitting timelines for mines. We've got more LNG facilities that are operating. And so without a doubt, we face challenges. I also think it's important to recognize, because I presume at some point, Jim, you're going to have Ward Stamer or someone from the Conservative side come and provide some commentary on my remarks, that those guys have to look in the mirror as well. We have faced challenges in forestry without a doubt over the period of time that my party has been in government.
I have a question.
If I could just finish on this point, let's also not forget that from 2001 to 2017, there was 70 mill closures and nearly 100,000 jobs lost in forestry, directly and indirectly. And so this is not a partisan issue. This is a structural issue with the sector that we have to address. And we have to address it by growing the sector. We have to address it by creating a more stable sector. And at the same time, to your point, we have to take opportunities to grow our economy. Mining, natural resources, tourism, arts, culture, everything plays a role in that. And we're doing that as a government.
I can be a testimony for you. I started, like I said, as a 16-year-old working in the mill in Midway, BC. And even back then, the mill's going to close in 6 months. We're going to go down to one shift. You know what I mean? All that. Forestry is a boom-bust cycle, and it is definitely a cycle. And it's a tough one. But I have a question for the people that are in the 100 Mile Houses and the Bear Lakes and all that stuff. When a mine or something gets permitted, will these people be kind of given front of the line status for employment in some of these other places? Will they be given preferential treatment to replace those high-paying jobs? Because, like I said, I was a mine site controller at a time too, and I know that those are good-paying jobs, right? Even the janitor makes good money on a mine site, and same thing in a sawmill operation, right? Like, everybody makes good money, but it's hard to replace those. Like, if you're running like a machine in Domtar that's specific to Domtar, right? I mean, it's not like you could transfer that. The tradesmen will do fine, I think, but it's the other people.
Yeah, no, really good point. The work that we're doing in my ministry, as well as my colleague, Minister Callon's ministry, Ministry of Jobs, Minister Sunner's post-secondary ministry, Ministry of Labor with Minister Whiteside, is we're all working together at one table to help support these workers. We've done bridging to retirement programs in the past to be able to help those more senior workers as a way to get them to retirement. And for those younger workers, it's retooling, it's reskilling, and it's also taking opportunities in the case of new mining projects. I think of Artemis Gold, which is announced recently an expansion. I think of Highland Valley Copper. There are huge projects to the tune of thousands of jobs out there, and we're certainly working to explore opportunities. I can't really speak to Jim whether those workers in 100 Mile can get kind of front of the line privileges in those cases. Many of those, as you know, are companies that make decisions on hiring based off of their own policies. But we certainly make the connection between those workers and the challenges they're facing with opportunities that they have to be able to get retooled, reskilled, and compete for those jobs as well.
You've been very generous with the time. I asked for 30 minutes. We're just over 30 minutes, and I do thank you for your time. I'm just going to ask you a party question because, like that, as we, there was a poll that came out, and it shows that, the people are really talking about cost of living and inflation and healthcare and affordability and all that stuff in the economy. And right now, they seem to be troubled as to where the NDP is heading. And we had Jonathan Kay on, and I'm going to leave you with this point here, and you're going to answer to this. That'll be my last question. Jonathan Kay on, he's from the National Post, or we used to work there. That in BC right now, they look west, and they say there's a lot of problems in BC, and as bad as the NDP is, this is what he said, as bad as the NDP is, the Conservatives are in complete chaos. How does NDP kind of clean up the economy? Because that is a major worry, and I know you're talking about a lot of stuff that will help with the economy. How do you put confidence back into British Columbians so that they can stop worrying every night? Obviously, Trump causes issue, but you made a good point. We got to fix the stuff we can fix. So what is on the list of things to get fixed?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We have to create economic growth, and economic growth leads to economic prosperity in every corner of this province. And that means good paying, quality family supporting jobs, and through all the sectors of our economy, in the natural resources space, in tech and innovation, in the service industry. I think of the incredible opportunities. I love anytime that I get an opportunity to head up to the Okanagan, into Kelowna. There is so much potential in aerospace, as an example. There's so much potential in tourism. There's so much going on in our agriculture sector. There is huge potential here in British Columbia. And what I hope British Columbians have seen over the course of 2025 is Premier Eby laying the groundwork for us to be able to proudly stand on our own 2 feet and fight for ourselves and no longer be at the whim of Donald Trump in the United States. We are going to diversify. We have so many competitive advantages here in British Columbia. We are close to the Asian ports through our ports of Vancouver and Prince Rupert. We have incredible resources, and our biggest competitive advantage, my predecessor, John Horgan, always said this, Premier Eby says this as well, the biggest advantage we have in British Columbia is our people. We have the most skilled, trained workforce in the entire world. People from all over the world are begging for our resources. We have incredible post-secondary institutions. We have to fight for that. I agree with Jonathan Kill. The Conservatives are an absolute mess. They are an embarrassment to be an official opposition party. I don't even want to spend time talking about One BC and the destructive racist comments that we've seen from that movement. The Conservatives are going to have an opportunity to choose a new leader after what was a very difficult session for them, where they spent more time fighting themselves and fighting for British Columbians. But I think what people have seen in my community, in conversations I'm having at the grocery stores in Langford, or conversations I'm having as Minister of Forests across British Columbians, is this is not an issue of leadership. This is an issue of a party that is unfit to govern. British Columbians want competent, strong leadership. That's what they're going to get, and what they have been getting from Premier David Eby and our team.
Well, I do thank you, and I could keep going on and on and on, but I mean, I want to be respectful of your time because I want to get you back on again, and I asked for 30 minutes, and we've gone over 30 minutes. And,
anytime, Jim.
And then you've done really well answering these questions, and I always think it back to the license plate. It says it right on the license plate for us, beautiful British Columbia, and it's I know we need to work harder to make it better, and like a lot of families are now considering leaving British Columbia, so we really need to work hard at at making sure that British Columbia is the place of choice. I do thank you.
Without a doubt, we got some work to do, but we got a lot of advantages, and we're going to take advantage of those opportunities. I know you invited me in your studio next time, so I hope it'll be in Kelowna in the new year, and hopefully I'll be able to join you in person.
That'd be great. Thank you, Ravi, as usual, and Merry Christmas to you and your staff and your family. And we hope you have a great break there, and you're ready to get at it as we head into the new year.
To you as well, Jim. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to all your listeners. Take care.
And thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news, we live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.